Right at the beginning of the anime, we are introduced to our protagonist, Kamito. As he walks quietly through a secluded forest, something completely unexpected happens. He ends up witnessing a girl bathing in a lake. At that moment, the girl realizes she is being watched and panics. Without thinking twice, she summons a whip of flames and attacks Kamito. But the problem is that, when using magic, she notices something strange. All the feathers on her body have simply disappeared. Despair takes hold of her once again, and in an attempt to protect herself, she uses her own whip to cut down the tree behind her. However, the idea backfires completely. The tree begins to fall, about to crush her. It is at this moment that Kamito, like any anime protagonist would, throws himself into the air and manages to save her at the last second. The detail is that, during the rescue, he ends up touching her accidentally, which makes the girl completely furious. Without giving him a chance to explain, she uses the whip of flames once again and puts Kamito to sleep. When he wakes up, the situation is even worse. The girl is holding his neck, but now wearing a white school uniform. Kamito recognizes it immediately. It is the Arishia Magic Academy, a school that until then only accepted girls. And the strangest thing of all is that he is there precisely because he received a letter from the school principal himself. Upon hearing this, the girl shows utter contempt, wondering why the principal would want to talk to someone as disgusting as him. Still, she believes the story, and finally introduces herself as Claire. She then lets him go and reveals her true goal: to make a contract with a legendary spirit. This spirit is sealed in an object that must be mastered, a sword known as the Demon Slayer. Excited by the idea, Kamito decides to accompany Claire to the ritual site. The two head to the ruins where the sword is sealed. Upon arriving, Claire uses her magic to unlock the entrance, and they advance until they find the sword she has been searching for. At first, everything seems to be going well. Claire begins the contract ritual and appears to be successful, until, suddenly, the sword disappears from her hands. Without warning, the real sword appears in the air above them and attacks. When it seems that Claire is seconds away from becoming waifu sushi, Kamito springs into action once again. He throws himself in front of her, and in a completely insane act, blocks the blow with his own hand. And that's when the impossible happens. By touching it, Kamito ends up forming a direct contract with the spirit of the sword, exactly what Claire wanted to do, but which he only managed to do by trying to save her. In the end, the contract is successfully sealed. Claire is saved. But as has become tradition, Kamito simply faints shortly after. When Kamito finally wakes up, he notices something strange. There is now a spiritual mark engraved on his arm. This confirms what seemed impossible. He had actually made a spiritual contract. Claire, on the other hand, does not hide her irritation at all. Not only does she refuse to accept the fact that a boy is capable of making contracts, something that theoretically only women should be able to do, she is also furious because Kamito ended up stealing the contract that should have been hers. After all, she was the one who intended to become the bearer of the sword. Even though she is upset, Claire takes Kamito to the Magic Academy, but she does it her way, keeping the boy tied up with a whip along the way. At some point, however, Kamito manages to escape. Free for a few moments, he decides to explore his new school, and on this curious walk, he ends up stopping right in front of the principal's office. Before entering, Kamito overhears a conversation on the other side of the door. A girl says she is totally against the idea of a boy studying at that academy. He immediately understands that the subject is him, so he decides to stay quiet and just listen. The problem is that on the other side of the door was Elise, and somehow, she senses his presence. Without warning, she kicks the door open violently, almost knocking the soul out of Kamito, who already imagines he is about to lose his precious meatballs. Elise clearly seems ready to finish him off right there. But before that happens, someone intervenes. Then Miss Grey Wolf, the school principal, appears. A 10-10 waifu with white hair, glasses, and a presence as imposing as it is charming. In addition to her looks, she is extremely respected within the academy. Even her name commands respect. With the situation finally under control and everyone calmer, the principal sits back down at the table. Kamito, seizing the opportunity, asks about the spirit he is looking for, named Hestia. But Miss Grey Wolf simply ignores the question. Instead, she reminds Kamito of the agreement made in the letter. He was called to the academy precisely to stay there as a student. That means attending classes and living like any other student. After that, Elise is tasked with showing Kamito around the school, including where he will live. But when they arrive at the room, reality hits hard. The place is so small that it can barely fit one person lying down. And worse, it can't even be called a real room. It's basically a makeshift hut, located right next to the stable. In other words, in addition to sleeping cramped, Kamito will also have to spend his nights inhaling the natural scent of horses. Later that same day, Claire walks through the school with her head down, lost in her own thoughts. The defeat still weighs heavily on her, and she comes to a clear conclusion. If she wants to achieve her goals, she will need to become stronger and faster. As Claire walks through the school, still immersed in her thoughts, she ends up finding Kamito next to Elise, and as has become customary, she doesn't think twice. She summons her whip and knocks Kamito down once again. Shortly after that, it's time for the first class. Kamito goes to his new classroom, where he meets his teacher Freya. After he introduces himself, one of the students immediately asks the obvious question: why is there a boy at that school? Before Kamito can tell the truth that he is the only man capable of forming spirit contracts, Claire, completely overwhelmed, stands up and announces in front of the entire class that Kamito is her servant. The situation was already awkward, but it gets worse when Kamito goes to find a place to sit. Claire uses her whip again and makes it clear that he is required to sit next to her. He doesn't like it one bit, but he doesn't even need to react. Out of nowhere, an arrow cuts through the air and frees Kamito. The shooter is Rin, a very pretty blonde girl who decides to help him. However, right after this kind act, Rin stumbles on the stairs and starts to fall. At the same time, another black-haired girl also loses her balance and comes straight towards him. The result? Kamito ends up saving the girl, just as he had done before with Claire. The problem is that, just like the first time, he ends up touching where he shouldn't, and that makes all the girls in the room indignant with him. The scene then cuts. Later that day, we see Kamito lying in his makeshift room, complaining about how absurdly tiring the first day of class was. He also recalls that as part of the agreement made with the principal, he needs to survive the academy for 2 months. All this so he can participate in an event called Blade Dance. And honestly, just thinking about it makes him feel lazy. Meanwhile, Claire appears walking around the school carrying some canned food. Even though she is upset, she decides to take it to Kamito. After all, she doesn't want her servant to starve to death. On the way to his house, Claire overhears an interesting conversation. She learns that the next day there will be a competition to form a spiritual contract. The winner will have the right to sign a pact with a military spirit, one of the most powerful categories of spirits that exist. At the same time, Kamito, alone in his cabin, continues to think about Blade Dance. And then the real reason for his interest in this festival is revealed. The winner can make a wish. No matter what it is, theoretically, it will be granted. Hunger strikes and Kamito decides to go to the cafeteria. But since he has no money, he ends up coming back empty-handed. Shortly after, Claire finally shows up at his house, delivers the food, and makes it clear that from now on he must act as her slave. And at that very moment, another girl also shows up at Kamito's house, making the situation even more complicated. Claire clearly doesn't like seeing Rin so close to Kamito. The atmosphere quickly heats up, and it doesn't take long for the two to start a very unfriendly fight, all because of the same protagonist. The confusion escalates in an absurd way. Claire summons her fire spirit cat, while Rin responds by bringing an ice wolf. The battle grows so intense that once again Kamito is the one who pays the price. One of the flame attacks gets out of control, and his house catches fire. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get any worse, Elise appears out of nowhere. With that air of superiority, she begins to humiliate the two, saying that this is why they are stuck in the worst class in school. And to rub salt in the wound, Elise also reveals that Claire is the sister of a traitor, while Rin's family has no honor whatsoever. That was enough. The two, completely enraged, challenge Elise to a duel. She accepts immediately, but imposes one condition. The fight would have to be 3 against 3. The result? Kamito has no choice. He ends up forming a team with Claire and Rin. After that, the trio splits up to prepare for the confrontation. Since Kamito is now officially homeless, he decides to spend some time at Claire's residence. However, when he arrives, the place is so messy that he decides to clean it up, and that's when things went wrong. While cleaning, Kamito ends up finding a very specific piece of Claire's clothing. Afraid of getting into monumental trouble, he hides the item in his pocket without her noticing. After cleaning, Claire serves him canned food and tells him to eat while she takes a shower. So far so normal, except that inside the bathroom, Claire begins to be attacked by a water spirit. The creature appears as a strange slime and begins to torment her. Desperate, she screams, and of course Kamito shows up to save the day once again. He resolves the situation, defeats the spirit, and Claire ends up falling into his arms. But at that exact moment, she ends up touching his pocket. And well, you remember what was stored there. When Claire realizes it, another fight breaks out between the two. After the commotion finally calms down, they have dinner together. During the conversation, Kamito asks why she wants so badly to have a powerful spirit by her side. The answer is surprising. Claire reveals that she wants to find her sister Rubia Austin, a famous figure in that world, known as the noble woman who set fire to an extremely important place. Her goal is simple, but heavy: to become strong enough to find her sister in person and ask her what really happened. This makes Kamito reflect. Maybe Claire isn't a bad person. Maybe she's just a cute tsundere trying to deal with her own past. Then the moment of the duel arrives. When they arrive at the appointed place, Rin is already there waiting. Shortly after, Elise appears with her two friends and the confrontation begins. Right at the start of the fight, Kamito tries to summon the spirit he made a contract with. The problem is that he still has no experience, so what appears is a very small sword. But as they say, better a small smart one than a big dumb one. The battle is evenly matched, but Kamito's team manages to defeat Elise's two friends. Now, only she remains. Elise prepares to use her most powerful magic until Kamito reveals his most dangerous ability. In the middle of the fight, he simply blurts out that she is beautiful. The effect is immediate. Elise is embarrassed, loses her concentration, and ends up defeated. It's safe to say that Kamito wins girls over not only with his sword, but also with his charm. Hero of Charm confirmed. But before the mood can calm down, something completely unexpected happens. Out of nowhere, a gigantic demonic spirit appears in the sky. The creature is ugly, powerful, and worse, it seems to know Kamito. Even so, Claire decides to face that thing alone. Kamito tries to warn her, asking her not to be rash, but she completely ignores him and goes on the attack. From a distance, Elise still tries to support her. Claire concentrates all her strength and attacks with everything she has, but the blows do absolutely nothing to the monster. She ends up exhausted, and as has become tradition in this anime, it is Kamito who must save her once again. He has saved Claire so many times that he can already request a song. When Claire is about to be devoured by the monster, something unexpected happens. Her fire spirit cat throws itself in front of the attack and sacrifices itself to save her. Yes, the spirit literally breaks the supreme rule of spirits. That same Death Note-style logic, where it was explained that a spirit can never sacrifice itself for a human. Sorry, but I never let a reference slip by. Seeing the sacrifice of her spirit, Claire breaks down in tears. It is at this very moment that Kamito enters the scene once again. He tries to summon his sword, and fails. He tries again, and fails again. But now it doesn't matter anymore. He decides he will save his waifu no matter what it takes. He keeps forcing the summoning until he finally succeeds. And just a reminder, Kamito's sword is called Demon Slayer, and now it lives up to its name. With an absurd, powerful, and cinematic blow, Kamito completely destroys the demon. After the battle, Claire, still crying, runs and hugs Kamito, apologizing for not listening to him when he asked her to be more cautious. He forgives her, but immediately afterwards, like every root protagonist, he faints from exhaustion. And yes, he faints a lot. While unconscious, Kamito has a dream. In it, we see a flashback from the past, where he appears as an apprentice to the Demon King. In this dream, he receives magical powers from a black-haired girl, and then her name is revealed, Hestia. The dream ends, and Kamito wakes up in a room inside Rin's mansion. But something is strange. He feels movement under the blanket. When he lifts the comforter, he is surprised to find there is a white-haired girl there. She calmly introduces herself and reveals that she is none other than the spirit of the demon hunter's sword. Only now she is out of combat form. Poor thing, she was just resting next to her master. But just then, Claire enters the room. With reflexes worthy of a veteran, Kamito quickly hides Hestia under the blanket again. Claire and her maid enter, chat normally, and apparently, nothing wrong is happening, until Hestia starts moving around too much under the comforter. This arouses Rin's suspicion, who demands to see what is there. Kamito tries to make an excuse, saying he needs to change first, but it doesn't work. Rin pulls back the blanket, and Hestia is revealed. The atmosphere becomes very tense. Rin thinks it's absurd, while Hestia just clings to her master, not understanding why everyone is freaking out. Kamito tries to explain that the girl is actually the spirit of the sword, but Rin doesn't really believe him, and summons her ice wolf, which begins to growl menacingly. But Hestia stands up and easily subdues the creature, making the wolf completely docile. The scene leaves both Kamito and Rin impressed. The scene cuts. Now we see Claire alone in her room, crying, dejected and depressed. But despite this, she hasn't given up. On the contrary, now she knows there is a chance to get the support of a military spirit, and for that reason she is determined to do whatever it takes. She gets up from the bed, determined. Meanwhile, Kamito walks across campus alongside Hestia, who is now wearing a school uniform like any other student. Along the way, Hestia reveals that she has refused to make contracts with more than 30 humans. She only accepted Kamito because she felt that the two of them were similar in some way. When they arrive at school, the girls immediately become upset when they see Kamito walking with another girl. Little by little, he gains a reputation as the academy's official womanizer. That's when Elise shows up to scold him. but unlike the others, she listens to his explanation. Upon learning that Hestia is the spirit of the sword, Elise understands the situation and accepts his apology. At that moment, Kamito shows concern for Claire. He mentions that he stopped by her dorm room earlier, but she wasn't there. He hadn't heard from her in a while. Then Elise reveals what may have happened. She believes Claire went to the tournament that afternoon, the event where the winner would have the right to sign a pact with a military spirit. Upon hearing what Elise says, Kamito doesn't think twice. He decides to go after Claire, because he knows very well that she is not at the level to attempt a contract with a military spirit. And off goes the protagonist, once again running to save his waifu. Meanwhile, we see that Claire is indeed on her way to the tournament. However, halfway there she is mysteriously approached by a girl, and we immediately recognize who it is. Hestia, the same girl who appeared in Kamito's flashback. Hestia says she can offer Claire power, a power capable of even bringing back her kitten Scarlet, the fire spirit who had sacrificed himself for her. Just hearing this, Claire accepts the deal without thinking twice. What she didn't know was that the power granted by Hestia was a demonic power, capable of causing absurd destruction. After the meeting, Claire heads to the arena and enters the competition for the military spirit. Meanwhile, Kamito is still desperately rushing to get there. In the fight, Claire starts off well. She fights with confidence, appearing to be promising. But over time, her energy begins to run out, and the audience is unforgiving. People start mocking her again, saying she is not worthy, that she is just the sister of a traitor. No matter how hard Claire tries to appear strong, those words hit her hard. Without energy and under pressure, she decides to appeal to the power she received from Hestia. Upon activating it, she summons a black cat engulfed in flames. But something is wrong. The creature's energy is completely evil, very different from the memory Claire had of its spirit. Everyone in the arena feels that dark presence and panics. People start to flee, and that's when Kamito finally arrives. Without hesitation, he stands in front of his waifu once again. Using Hestia, the spirit of the sword, he faces the demonic creature. Even though it is extremely powerful, Kamito manages to defeat it, dispelling all that evil energy. After that, he tries to wake Claire up, telling her that she can't surrender to evil just to fulfill her personal desires. In tears, Claire replies that she is tired of being alone, tired of being labeled as the sister of the traitor, tired of being mocked all the time. Before she can continue, Kamito interrupts her. He says that no matter what happens, he will always be by her side, that she no longer needs to be afraid of being alone. Yes, this boy is dangerously cute. After defeating the cat spirit for the second time, Kamito turns to Claire and asks where those powers came from. But before she can answer, Hestia appears in the arena. The shock is immediate. She reveals that she was the one who granted Claire those powers. What's more, she says she has been searching for Kamito for 3 years. Without warning, Hestia attacks. Kamito skillfully dodges, and then Hestia conjures black wings and flies away. He even thinks about going after her, but the defeated spirit begins to transform into a gigantic dark golem. With no time to think, Claire pulls Kamito away, and the two flee the arena. When they finally get a few seconds of peace, Claire asks who Hestia is and why Kamito knows her. He replies that she was his former contracted spirit. The revelation leaves him completely shaken. He feels betrayed, confused, and disappointed, but Claire doesn't let him lose himself in that state. She tells him to regain his composure, because the golem is heading toward the city, and only Kamito has enough power to stop it. Even though he is emotionally destroyed, he tries to move forward, but it is Claire who takes the initiative and kisses the protagonist. And surprise, surprise, it works. With their minds restored, the two run together to face the golem. Along the way, Claire warns that she still has some energy left, but that as always, most of the work will fall to Kamito. Upon reaching the golem, Kamito begins the attack by piercing the creature's eyes. At the same time, Claire holds the monster's arm with all her strength, allowing him to finish the blow. The golem is defeated, and as tradition dictates, Kamito faints once again. Honestly, it's hard to tell what he does anymore, whether to save Claire or pass out afterwards. In any case, Claire is deeply impressed by his abilities. Later, Kamito returns to the dormitory, and as usual, Hestia of the sword is once again under the blanket. And just like with Rin, Claire is not at all happy to see that scene. And to make matters worse, Elise and Rin are also there, witnessing everything. In the end, they all agree on one thing: Kamito is a big scoundrel. While this confusion unfolds on one side, the story cuts to introduce a new student named Aviana. She is also part of the same academy, and the important detail is that she already knew Kamito from the past. In a flashback, we see Aviana facing a gigantic and monstrous spirit, until at the last moment she ends up being saved by Kamito. Seeing him fight, she notices something familiar. His manner, his strength, his presence. He reminded her of a legendary hero. The name of that hero was Renash Bell. When Kamito defeats the creature, Aviana is absolutely certain that he is this hero, and to her complete surprise, Kamito confirms this for her. However, during the conversation, he asks for only one thing, that she keep it a secret. Returning to the present, we see Aviana full of expectation, eagerly awaiting her reunion with her hero. Meanwhile, after the intense battle against the golem, Kamito needs almost a whole week to fully recover. As soon as he is finally 100%, he decides to start training. But of course, the universe won't let him. Est, overcome with jealousy after seeing Kamito kissing Claire, appears furious. She makes it very clear that now she also wants a kiss, no matter what. Kamito is in despair, but in his mind, there is no way out. He will have to grant the sword's request. But just at that moment, Claire comes out of the shower. When she sees the scene about to happen, she simply explodes. Result, Kamito gets a monumental beating, just to learn who his boss is. The scene then shifts to a new challenge. Professor Freya announces a sparring competition, where students would fight for a promotion. The catch is that each team must have at least 5 people. Initially, Claire and Kamito's team only has the 2 of them. And at first, they think this won't be a problem. Spoiler, it wasn't. They end up being easily defeated in the first round. After that, they start thinking about who could join the team. That's when they meet Rin, who as always is accompanied by her maid. She offers to join the team. Claire doesn't like the idea at first, but ends up accepting. The problem is that Rin talks too much. She reveals that she was once part of another team, and that she ended up leaving after not helping at all. Upon hearing this, Claire begins to wonder if it's really worth keeping Rin on the team. And as expected, the two begin to argue. But the real dispute there is not about strategy, it's about who will be closer to Kamito. And if things were bad enough already, they get worse when Elise shows up. She simply invites Kamito to join her team, completely ignoring Claire and Rin. This infuriates the two, who refuse to accept the idea of being away from Kamito. After being practically forced to refuse the offer, Elise prepares to leave. But before that, she drops a bombshell. Kamito has been summoned by the principal to come to her office. That's right. The guy wasn't doing anything, and now he has to go talk to the principal. The scene cuts. Now we see Est appearing again, only this time she's going to meet someone very scary. The scene doesn't explain much, it just leaves that heavy atmosphere in the air, and it cuts again. We return to Kamito, now going to meet the principal, the 1010 waifu. When he arrives, he realizes that she is accompanied by another girl. It's Aviana. The principal explains that Aviana will now be a new student at the academy. But her arrival is not ordinary. She is involved in a critical mission that the school will need to face. Therefore, Kamito and his team are assigned to protect her. Aviana is clearly excited to see her hero again after so long. The problem is, Kamito has no idea who she is. He simply doesn't remember her. Aviana even thinks about revealing her true identity, but ends up holding back her excitement and decides not to say anything. The scene cuts once again. Now we see Hestia meeting a mysterious red-haired man covered in tattoos and marks on his body. His name is Inzaghi, and to be perfectly honest, this is not the kind of person you invite to sit with you at recess. Their conversation is grim. Inzaghi talks about breaking into a certain place, but says he can't do it because the place is protected by powerful magical seals, and now he needs to figure out how to break those seals. He then asks Hestia to break into the school library. According to him, it has everything they need to complete their mission. And once everything is done, Inzaghi says he will finally become the new Demon King. So their intentions are still mysterious, but they are planning something big here. Then the scene cuts and returns to Kamito. Now he is walking through the school with Aviana, and while they are together, she refers to him directly as the legendary hero Renatbel. Kamito finds this strange, but he doesn't remember her yet. Then Aviana reveals that she had asked the principal to let Kamito stay by her side. And while they are walking once again, the other students at the school are commenting that Kamito is now with another girl. And I'm not even going to judge because I think if I were in their place, I would also think Kamito was a stud. And really, every time the guy is with a girl, what can you say about him? And Aviana, despite her sweet face, is no fool, because when she saw that people were commenting on them, she started hugging Kamito in a very affectionate way. She did that clearly with the intention of shocking everyone. and also to show that Kamito belonged to her. However, as soon as she touches Kamito, Clara appears out of nowhere. And when she sees the two of them together like that, she immediately becomes jealous and demands an explanation. Kamito then began to explain himself to Claire, but Viana found everything that was happening strange. After all, why was Kamito explaining himself to Claire? So Viana asked once and for all what Claire's relationship with Kamito was. She replied that she and Kamito had entered into a spiritual contract. Upon hearing the answer, Viana knew that meant they had kissed. She didn't like knowing that her hero was kissing another girl, so she challenged Claire to a duel to see who would get Kamito. Claire accepted the challenge and prepared to fight. However, Viana interrupted her and said she was only challenging her to a cooking duel. Viana then taunted Claire, asking if she couldn't handle a challenge like that. Claire obviously denied it, and the two began to compete there in Claire's apartment. And when I say compete, I want to remind you that I'm talking about cooking for Kamito, okay? Because in practice that's what they're fighting over, right? And then while they were cooking, Kamito decided to take a shower to relax. I think it's funny how he always manages to take the situation in stride. But then the girls finally finish their dishes, and we see that Claire's food apparently ended up burnt and ugly, while Viana's food looked beautiful and appetizing. However, for some reason when Claire ate Viana's food, she immediately fell asleep. And then Viana takes advantage of the situation she herself had created. She seizes the moment to go check on Kamito in the shower. Kamito is shocked to see the girl coming in. And I know at this point you must be thinking how Kamito can be so poor, right? And how everything can go so wrong in his life. But calm down, you haven't seen anything yet, okay? And I say that because with the noises in the shower, Claire ended up waking up, and she immediately went to see what was happening in her bathroom, right? And then when she saw Kamito and Viana in the shower, she couldn't accept it. And do you think she dragged Kamito out by his ear? Well, that's not what she did. In fact, she went and joined them in the shower. And now the poor protagonist was there, poor thing, bathing next to two girls. And if you think the situation couldn't get any worse, know that Esti arrives there next. And even though she was very uncomfortable seeing her master in that situation, she does nothing because she informs us that the school is under attack at that moment. The scene then cuts to Izagi invading the school grounds, and he single-handedly managed to beat up both Elise and her friends. After learning this, Claire and Kamito immediately rush to the scene to try to help. However, when they arrive, the damage has already been done and Izagi has fled into the forest. But Kamito is on his trail and continues to search for him. When the two meet in the forest, they begin to fight. Claire tries to support Kamito, but she is nowhere near Izagi's level. This is because Izagi can manipulate multiple souls. This allows him to have multiple contracts and multiply his strength several times over, so he was even more powerful than Kamito. And well, the battle was already difficult with Claire and Kamito. But then, for some reason, Viana decided to get involved too. She was soon pushed back, and was about to be finished off by Izagi. But then Kamito got involved, and managed to block the attack. But the cost of saving Viana ended up being quite high, because Kamito ended up injured and lost his powers because of it, and Viana also ended up unconscious. The truth is that Izagi could have finished them all off if he wanted to, but he had already accomplished his mission and gotten what he wanted at the school. So he just turns around and leaves, leaving the defeated behind. But he guarantees that he and Kamito will meet again. And from here we begin part 2 of the Hero of Charm. The morning after Izagi's attack, Princess Viana woke up from her nightmare. She instantly checked the spirit seal, and it wasn't long before Kamito said that the knights would investigate yesterday's theft. Kamito planned to ask about Princess Viana, who already knew about his true identity, and before Princess Viana could answer any of the questions, Clara once again appeared with an angry expression. As usual, she felt that they were hiding something from her. Clara then grabbed her whip, ready to punish the two for scheming behind her back. However, with a panicked look on his face, Kamito grabbed Princess Viana and ran away. A few moments later, Rin seemed to get very excited because she had seen Kamito with a girl. So when Rin found Clara, she told her that she was going to take advantage of the situation and make Kamito her slave. Not only that, Rin also provoked Clara by saying that Kamito was alone with a woman going into the forest. Clara pretended not to feel anything, pretended not to be bothered, but soon she expressed her despair. Rin then deliberately lured Clara by giving her tips on how to increase her bust size. Clara accidentally said that she was looking for a spirit in the forest to increase her bust size. However, she discovered that it was all just gossip, all fake news. Rin then planned to share these tips, but they weren't free. Meanwhile, in the forest, Kamito and Princess Viana were walking together. The princess explained why she was able to discover who Kamito really was. She gave him the first clue, which was the Astral Zero Forest. Then she gave him the tip herself, showing him a picture of herself being saved by Kamito 3 years earlier. It is soon revealed that Princess Viana had gone to the academy because she had heard rumors about a man named Kamito there, an elementalist who had defeated the most powerful military spirits. Princess Viana wanted to join Kamito to participate in the blade dance and regain her position, thus regaining all the honor and status she so desired. Moments later, they come at Kamito with a sword pointed at him. She explained that there was no prohibition on special relationships between students. However, this was an old rule. Before there was a male student there like Kamito. Anyway, she is just another one who will be hanging around Kamito now. Soon, Elise also reveals that she is pursuing the enemy to the city to recover the secret documents that had been stolen. And inside the secret document was a record of the strategic spirit being sealed in the mining town. And because of Enzag's actions, Sufield's good name had been tarnished. And since Elise was the leader of this group, she planned to capture Enzag to restore the group's good reputation. Kamito then said that they had the same goal and asked Elise to work together. However, Elise is a very difficult person. She refused this request and decided that she would take care of everything herself. And then the next day, when everyone was already on their respective horses, Kamito asked about Rin's participation. Claire replied that she allowed Rin to participate because Rin had already told her important information. What important information did she tell Claire? Right. Meanwhile, Rin's maid Carol decided not to go. It was already night when they arrived in the city. They then began to enter the place, and on the way, Princess Viana asked if anyone had already performed the ceremony. In the end, the temple that was there turned out to be just a big joke. Meanwhile, the real temple was hidden deep in the mountains. Then they began to hear sounds of fighting, so everyone headed toward the source of the sound. When they got there, they saw a fierce battle between Elise and Enzag taking place. Kamito and the other girls tried to help them, but Enzag unleashed his powers one by one, until Rin had to be cornered and trapped. She was trapped in a kind of stone prison there. Meanwhile, Kamito was now trying to protect Princess Viana, even if his energy had to be drained for that. And then when the protagonist tries to get up, he is surprised to hear Enzag say that he was about to summon his strongest spirit. The spirit was called Thanatos, and that scared everyone, because, well, Enzag had already defeated everyone without his strongest spirit. Now imagine with his strongest spirit, the situation would get ugly. Enzag then revealed that he had inherited this spirit from Hestia. Kamito knew that he had also contracted this spirit in the past. Meanwhile, Princess Viana took out a red stone until Enzag finally disappeared. Viana used the power of the stone to attack Enzag, and he even tried to fight back, but the power was so strong that he couldn't resist and disappeared. And then, when the fight was over, Kamito asked the princess what kind of red stone she had. Princess Viana then explained that the red stone was the blood of a spirit god. The red stone was a hereditary treasure of her family. It was a special stone that could even seal the spiritual power of a high-level spirit. And then, to protect the stone, Princess Viana placed it in a very special place so that no one would dare to touch it, and you saw where that place was. However, after all that, Princess Viana was sad because she had planned to use the power of the stone for the blade dance later. Then, 4 years ago, after suffering an incident, we see that Princess Viana lost her contracted spiritual power. Because of this, she became a kind of outcast within the royal family. And since she had no spiritual power, in order to enter the school, she also had to cheat on the entrance exam and use the power of the stone to do so. She wanted so badly to win the Blade Festival, because she really wanted to fulfill her desire to regain her contracted spirit. That way she would regain her power, and also regain her prestige within her family. Moments later, an earthquake begins there, caused by the awakening of a giant creature. They are worried, but if Gil cannot find the royal temple, he will not be able to remove it from there. Meanwhile, on the other hand, Ares was still unable to walk after the battle. Her legs were still affected by the poison. Meanwhile, Rin couldn't fight because she was still trapped. So basically the only ones left to fight were Kamito, Esti, Clara, and Princess Viana. And so they continued on their way to try to find the real temple. Esti suddenly revealed the location of the real temple. Just like that, freestyle. She also revealed that she had been there many times before being sealed by the sword. The funny thing is that if she had revealed this information earlier, they would have had much less work, and also would have been in much less danger to find the temple. But anyway, they rushed to the altar of the real temple. And meanwhile, we see that Izagi didn't back down at all. In fact, he was seen ordering Esti to take him to the altar of the real temple. And well, Kamito and his team had already reached the front door of the altar, which contained a shipment of elemental rulers whose existence had been erased by Rin. And then the door began to open slowly. Kamito then told Princess Viana that only she could perform the spiritual dance. For this ritual to be performed successfully, it had to be done by someone with royal blood. Viana then planned to purify herself in the water that flowed there. However, they didn't even have a few seconds of peace because the fight soon resumed when Izagi appeared there. Kamito continued to attack Izagi with all his might. But unexpectedly, Kamito was impaled by the spirit sword that Izagi had contracted. The villain then showed a red stone that was the source of his power. This stone allowed him to control several spirits simultaneously. At this moment we see that Princess Viana seems to be reciting some kind of incantation. Then when she begins to perform her elemental dance ritual, Izagi begins to appear to feel pain. Finally, some good news, but a little later, the rest arrive to help Izagi. She then summons a dark spirit that prepares to attack Princess Viana. Fortunately, Kamito arrives in time to intervene and uses his body to protect the princess. Seeing the protagonist's sacrifice, Princess Viana and Clara take advantage of the opening created to counterattack Izagi. After that, Izagi is finally defeated. The next day, after all this confusion, when they are in front of the principal, she reminds them that the Elemental Dance Festival is coming up. She said that Kamito's team was not very prepared for the festival. In fact, it seemed incomplete. The principal then warned them that no matter how powerful Kamito was, a girl named Eva, who was Elise's older sister, had returned, and she was simply the most powerful summoner of all. In just a few weeks, she had managed to make a pact with an S-class demon spirit, and she would be at the festival, so they had better prepare to face her. Meanwhile, Mrs. Frey, the teacher, had received a report saying that illegal trade was very common at the academy. There were rumors that the cursed seal was being sold among the students, so the principal asked the knights to increase security at the academy. And so at noon, Claire, Princess Viana, and Kamito are training against the other students for the festival. Meanwhile, Princess Viana was being attacked by a water spirit until they finally managed to defeat it. They had won 3 consecutive battles, and then they faced Elise's team. In the end, they ended up in 3rd place. If Elise's team couldn't keep up with them, Kamito's team would be either 1st or 2nd. And if that happened, they would have to compete against Eva's team, who was Elise's older sister. That extremely powerful girl that the principal had warned them about. Well, Claire is simply terrified of facing Eva because she was known as the strongest knight in the entire academy. But well, that would be for another time because now they are on their way to the restaurant. Claire then sees a scarlet-shaped necklace. Kamito approaches her, but Claire has left. It didn't take long for Rin to approach Kamito and announce that tomorrow was Claire's birthday. The next day, Elise seems to be working some overtime. She reads a book stating that spirits had 2 forms and summons and that they consisted of several simultaneous spiritual energies. While she was trying to memorize the whole situation, she was so surprised by Kamito's presence that she pointed her sword at him when he appeared. They soon separated, and Elise apologized for misunderstanding his presence there. And then, after all this confusion, the class begins. And Miss Freya says that the cursed seal was an artificial spiritual seal that could not only seal spirits but also serve to extract their power by force and thus make them a new type of spirit. And then Elise says that Sulfite was in charge of supervising the cursed seal dealer in the capital. After she finishes her overtime, Kamito goes to her room. At that moment, Elise was changing clothes in a different room. Meanwhile, Kamito sat there and stared at Ren's photo. Kamito said he couldn't let Elise know his true identity. It didn't take long for Kamito to see a photo of Elise with her sister. Suddenly, Elise started having some kind of kissing attack. Then sometime later, when they were in the garden, Elise told Kamito that this might have been the last time he entered her room. She was alone at that moment because her roommate was on a mission and would return soon. This roommate was very bad-tempered, and if she saw Kamito there, she would probably kill him. At that moment, she reveals that her roommate Eva, her older adoptive sister, used to be the captain of the Sulfide Knights, a position now held by Elise herself. Kamito was surprised by this information because, unexpectedly, they were not blood sisters. Elise then reveals that her sister was raised to be one of the most powerful of all, and to make the most dangerous contracts with the most powerful demons. However, when Eva had participated in the Blade Festival 3 years earlier, she ended up being defeated by a legendary hero named Ren Ashbel. Well, Elise didn't know it, but that hero is none other than Kamito himself, right? And now that they are finally beginning to understand each other, Elise asked Kamito to join the Sulfil Knights, and Kamito agreed to help her. Meanwhile, Claire was trying to make chocolate. Kamito arrived there, and Claire scolded him after discovering that he had entered Elise's room. Kamito tried to explain that Elise had only invited him to join the Knights and apologized for it. Even after hearing that, Claire was still sad because she didn't want to share Kamito with anyone. She didn't like imagining her hero next to Elise at all and started crying, causing Kamito to leave frightened. Then the next day, Elise announced that there would be no classes because the students would be participating in a festival in the city. She also took advantage of the announcement to say that Kamito would now join the Knights. Shortly after this announcement, it didn't take long for Eva to appear in front of everyone. She glared at her sister Elise, then activated her power and shattered the atmosphere of the class. After she did that, several students began to feel pain. She basically used the King's Rakui. She chose 4 students who stood up to her power to join her team for the festival. After that, they left. On the other hand, we see that Elise and Kamito were exterminating several monsters. They settled a dispute, and Elise was still disappointed that the elders had abandoned her. Elise then says that Eva, her sister, used to be a great and strict knight. She was able to resolve things without resorting to her spiritual powers. Elise used to look up to her older sister with admiration. She was her role model, but now Eva was no longer the same knight she used to admire. While they were eating, Kamito saw Scarlet and ran after her. That's how he finally ended up finding Claire. However, Claire was still very angry with Kamito. It was obvious that Claire liked Kamito very much, thus containing her embarrassment. Claire then asked Kamito to at least give her some affection, and she would forgive him. However, Kamito said he didn't have time to do that because he was on duty with Elise to protect the academy. Then, in the middle of their awkward conversation, Elise arrived. Claire became angry and threw an object at Kamito, then left. Unexpectedly, 2 students saw Claire in the distance. Then a green-haired girl named Vivian sensed that it was a perfect opportunity and intended to approach Claire. She took 2 more students and offered them unparalleled power. They could use all the power she was giving them to defeat Claire without any problem. On the other hand, Eve is now feeling pain when she sees a photo of the hero Ranihakbel, who had defeated her in her little sister's room. Meanwhile, Claire was very sad on her birthday because no one else had remembered her. However, she tells herself to recover because she has to prepare to meet her sister. Well, not long after she thought that, Claire was visited by Vivian, who immediately imprisoned Claire using her magic. But Claire was quick on her feet, as if she had been expecting it, and managed to deal with it. Cut to the scene, and we see Elise looking at a dress like a beautiful little girl. Then suddenly, Kamito asks her why she wanted to become a knight. Elise then explained that she wanted to become like Eva was in the past. She wanted to show her sister what it meant to be a knight, or at least remind her. And that's why Elise joined the festival that was about to take place. After that, Kamito went shopping with Elise and bought the necklace that Claire wanted so much. A few moments later, they saw an angry spirit and decided to go check it out. They started fighting, and in the middle of the fight, Kamito saw a child about to be struck. Kamito desperately ran to save the little girl, but suddenly, he was impaled. Even though he was injured, he persisted in attacking the spirit to save everyone. However, after being caught off guard, Kamito was not in a very good situation. Fortunately, Claire was always there with her spider sensor to save her man, and suddenly, she arrived to save him. Elise and Claire finally joined forces to help Kamito. It didn't take long for Eva to arrive there as well. She began to boast that such a powerful spirit needed to be defeated by a worthy warrior. Then the next day, Kamito woke up covered in bandages. He then ate the chocolate that Claire had prepared the day before. Claire then went to check on Kamito. Kamito took advantage of the situation to give her the gift he had bought for her. When Claire heard that, she was thrilled to learn that he had bought the necklace she wanted. She then apologized for her attitude in pushing Kamito away from her. Then in the middle of the conversation, Princess Viana appeared there as well. She said that their opponent for tomorrow had already been determined. They would indeed face Eva's team. It was a top-notch team, practically the most powerful because Eva was the most powerful. A little while later, Henslet arrived. Kamito then convinced her to join his team at the last minute, and she finally agreed to join them for the reason Kamito had asked her. Elise looked very sad, and suddenly Claire came and asked her to join her team to fight Eva. Elise refused, but then 2 members of Elise's team came and tried to convince her to accept the offer. And when the members of her own team started saying that she should accept it to settle the score with her sister, she finally accepted. Meanwhile, we see Vivian talking to Eva, and they seem to be fighting or arguing. Then the next day, Claire devised a strategy for them at the festival. The center of the attack would be left to Elise because she was very skilled. Meanwhile, Princess Vivian would help with the defense with her dancing.
Rin is then left with the most complicated mission of all, to make Eva fall. Soon after, the festival preliminaries officially begin. Meanwhile, the girls spring into action, each fulfilling their role, while Kamito sits in the audience. The poor guy woke up all bandaged up, still recovering from his injuries, unable to really help at that moment. From the top of the bleachers, he watches his girls coordinate a joint attack, trying to break Eva's armor. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, until, completely unexpectedly, Eva begins to summon the power of a dark spirit. And that power was no small thing. The energy was so absurd that it managed to trap Claire and the other girls at the same time. Seeing this, Kamito immediately realizes that this has gone too far. That power was too brutal for a simple festival combat. Without thinking twice, he intervenes. The bonds created by the Black Spirit's magic are instantly severed by Kamito's sword, the true Demon Slayer. And at that moment, to save his companions, Kamito decides to finally reveal his true power. As soon as this happens, Eva and the entire audience freeze. The similarities are impossible to ignore. The posture, the energy, the sword, everything resembled King Ashbel, the legendary hero, and the truth comes to light. Kamito is the legendary hero himself. The problem is that he was still injured. He couldn't use 100% of his power. So without hesitation, Princess Viana casts a definitive healing spell to restore him. This spell completely drains her energy, but allows Kamito to recover. Now restored, he joins forces with his girls and manages to completely paralyze Eva, who was already being consumed by the evil spirit and almost losing complete control. At that moment, Alice begs Kamito to save her sister. Responding to her request, he manages to deactivate the spiritual power of the black magic that had taken hold of her. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, we discover that Vivian was deeply disappointed. After all, she was the one who placed the cursed seal on Eva's heart. Trying to sneak away after everything went wrong, Vivian ends up being intercepted by the principal, who punishes her for her actions. With that, Kamito's team is declared the winner of the festival. The next day, Alice visits her sister, and Eva finally apologizes for everything she has done. She is then taken for proper healing. In addition, Ashi manages to completely destroy the cursed seal that interfered with the regeneration of sacred energy in Eva's heart. And this is only possible because Ashi is nothing less than the legendary sword of the Demon King. A few days later, everyone heads to Astral Gate 0, where the long-awaited Blade Dance event will take place. And so the first season of the anime comes to an end, with Kamito and his team crowned champions of the festival.